Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. We're excited to be back with you for the start of the 2024 year and our first broadcast of the year. Jennifer Katrulya, entering FOA 2.0 as far as our seasons of FOA Live. So very exciting. Of course, joined by Rush Olney. Rush, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you as well, and all the listeners. Thanks for joining us. It was interesting. We jumped on 10 or 15 minutes early, and it felt like we'd never done this before as we were discussing backgrounds and all sorts of technical things that would be helpful or that we had forgotten. So it's always fun to start the new year off with something new. So
already good afternoon to, we have a LinkedIn user. Happy New Year. And Roberto, good afternoon. And so as we ended the year, it was really fun to connect with so many of you who started popping on to join us for the show. And so thank you. And we'll keep an eye on the comments as we go. And when Rush said it felt like a new experience that we hadn't done this before, it's because I think we're so committed this year. We've been looking at all the history of the last year, which we'll touch on a little bit, and excited about the year to come. But also, and this is a big thank you to all of you, as we feel increasingly, attached to the community and settled into what we're doing. We also want to be very transparent about the things we're experimenting with. So aligned with our commitment to bringing more content and more depth to all of you, the things that a number of you have been asking for in a range of topics, as well as the cool guests we have coming up in the weeks ahead. It also is causing us to experiment with some technology changes and some ways that we make sure we're tracking the content for you carefully and making efficient use of your time. So is also the clarity of the images and sound. So we're trying to get a little bit more tuned in as far as the actual quality of the streaming we're bringing to you. And we've been learning a lot. So it's exciting. And thank you for taking the journey with us. And so Armando and Lou, welcome and Happy New Year to both of you as well. And so like, many people, we've been kicking off 2024 and really like doubling down on the community and doubling down on the range of things that you've been asking for. We spent, obviously last year really, really traveling and getting to know so many of you. And so this year we're really deepening the level of great relationships we have, the wide range of relationships that we're having the opportunity to experience and encounter with all of you. Thank you. And we've been able to speak with so many family offices and wealth accumulators and hear what's going well as far as, and also where the challenges are. And we want to really leverage that as we bring you the content and programming for this year.
Yeah, and I'll touch on a couple of topics that we will be offering and working with the current families and fielding any suggestions to kind of hone our best practices along with educating and bringing to light best practices for family offices. So a couple of the bullets that we have slated for 2024 are master classes every 6 to 8 weeks or every quarter. We're still debating what the frequency of that will be, but we do have our first master class coming, coming out shortly. So please keep an eye out for that. It will be posted on the website and obviously on our social media platforms. We have a new member website that we've worked on through the second half of last year that will have member profiles, map locations, portfolios, walls, or blog posts for each user. And what I'd like to note with that is when I'd gone to Singapore last year, I'd never been to Singapore, had a great time, but had very little contacts. And one of our members was nice enough to put me in contact with Charles Chong over there. And thank you, Shirley, for that. And that trip, had I not been put in contact with Charles, probably wouldn't have been as seamless and as fun and beneficial as it was. So I think that resource and just being able to reach out to community members if you have a business trip or even a personal trip, to ask them sort of what what the locals do, or to have a warm reception when you touch down there is very beneficial. We have a new series of weekly blogs that we'll be putting out. We're open to entertain topics, and do the research, and put together information on any topics that people are yearning for information and education on. Um, we'll be doing in-depth discussions with Resource Council. They'll be joining us on FOA Live, and they have a wide range of depth and experience. We're also, as Jennifer brought up at the end of last year, we're looking for people to let us know who they would like to listen to, or who they would like to either have on FOA Live or as a speaker at any of the events that we put on. And then we have peer communities. Those are virtual and live rollouts. They'll start with Global Impact, Alternative Investments, EB5, Sports and Entertainment, and Next Gen Leaders, to name a few. So
really exciting, and Rush, thank you. And what's happened, to be very candid, is over the last, when Rush and I got to the end of November, we'll say, we had, some of you may have noticed, the website, the events page was really populated for the year, and we had this. We were so certain, we were buttoned up, we were super excited, and then in the course of December and even over the holidays, last couple of weeks, I want to extend the thank yous to so many of you who reached out and said, "Hey, I'm in Miami, or I'm in Nashville, or Austin, or New York, or LA, wherever you are," and saying, "Look, I have the opportunity, I have the space, I have the means to bring together, a really well curated group, growing organically on the incredible community that's either returned to FOA or expanded over the last year." Super exciting. And so what that caused us to do is, rather than hold the events similar to what we've done over the last year, where they may have been larger, and we'll still do some of those, whether it's the retreat with our focused speaker topics and the wider range of networking. We know a number of you have said, "Hey, we want to bring, whether it's 15 people or 20 or, very small groups together in these other geographies time and again." And so we wiped the calendar and said, "Okay, let's retool based on the opportunities, again, really to focus on the depth." And the website, it's been so fun and exciting to see, as a community, all of you come together and exchange ideas and opportunities to share knowledge and growth and support that through the website. Over this past year, we've really kept things very public, whether it's social media or at the events. And so we wanted to share that, and we'll continue to share a lot with our friends and our guests and things like that. But now we know, as more and more of you are meeting at events across the country, and as Rush was pointing out, across the world, we'll be actively working with our friends in Asia and the UK, and certainly continuing to expand the community. As we're doing that, we know all of you want to stay connected as well. So you'll be receiving, over the course of this week and next, your logins to the website, as Russ was mentioning, and you will be having the opportunity to connect. We'll be having monthly web-based calls with the community, so that, again, across geographies, you're able to stay connected. And it's really important. We want to make sure that you're not just seeing each other at one event in one part of the country, and if you don't live there, that you're not able to connect again for several months. So we're being very, very mindful about how we keep everybody connected and continue that growth, which is exciting. And so I will also point out, in our continued transparency for the year, that you're going to see Rush's face kind of glaring at me, because before we joined this call, I put together a little bit of an outline for what we'd talk about today, and we rehearsed it, and we try to make sure we bring you an organized show. And then inevitably, I get so excited about the conversation with all of you that I've already gone totally off the rails. So we will return to the plan for today and stick there, which, as what Rush was sharing, building on the months we've been spending, we have, incredible people together in the community. We've really focused on, from a best practice standpoint, as we're traveling and we're networking with all of you and we're hearing the experiences. We also, between the professional and community experience Rush and I have individually, as well as we've spent much of the last year, I'll say quietly a little bit, obviously retooling and then expanding our resource council, which is a collaboration really of incredible professionals across so many disciplines. And so while that community has been coming together, we enter this year really in a position to offer an incredibly robust support system for our family office members, for our wealth accumulators, in the areas of best practice management of a family office, and also on the wealth accumulator side. And even for those of you who are, especially if you're new to leading your family office and or starting new businesses and evolving new businesses, we want to make sure you have that support system as well. So you're going to see, when Rush mentions the master classes and the resources on the website and the doubling down on providing support for all of you, it's going to be that combination of evolving best practices and learning across the across the relationships we all share, and then also just the experiences that we're hearing and kind of the behind the curtain of the real life case studies and situations we are encountering. And we know your friends may not share with you because it can be sometimes a little bit embarrassing or difficult to communicate. And so we want to make sure we're bringing you those lessons learned and helping again to raise all ships. So we're excited to do that. And so what we thought we'd do with the rest of the time on the show today is walk through, as if you had a checklist in front of you, of some due diligence areas that it makes sense to think about in your family office as you jump into the year. Just very high level comments. You can do it kind of in checklist format and say, if I had a ranking of 1 to 10, where does my family stand today in these given areas, and what are some of the suggestions, and how will we cover them in the upcoming shows, certainly again with our resource council guests. And thought that Rush and I would just run through a laundry list of those topics, and where you have comments or experience, please feel free to share those in. We have an amazing speaker list coming to the table of family office members, of thought leaders, et cetera, for the months ahead. But certainly want to make sure we continue to grow that community. And we do have a speakers bureau dedicated, to those of you who have topics or introductions you'd like to make with people to share. So, but kicking off just a wide range of the topics, I'm kind of calling this our 2024 New Year Family Office Assessment. I know it's very original. Titles have never been my thing, but we'll jump into the topics. And first, when we just talk about, family office structure, that's something where have been in a number of conversations where even very, multi-generation families who are substantial family offices in the respect of, AUM and legacy and all of this, and certainly many of them names well, have said, hey, even so, we have a lot of assets, we have a lot of things distributed. I govern or I manage this range of things, but we've never really looked at our overall family office structure, and not really sure from a legal or tax standpoint what is the best fit for us. And so one of the things, you may find yourself in that boat. And if so, again, on that ranking of 1 to 10, as you jump into this year, as you are leading your family, as you're thinking about, how you'll pass it on to a next generation, some of what we'll spend our time on this year really is just the structure of your family office. Is it right for you today? Is it right for you in the future? And Rush, I know that's something you and I have been speaking about for a number of reasons.
Yeah, and I think an important note or an additive note to that is with a well-defined decision-making process and conflict resolution, It's always interesting when you enter into a contract. They have very well defined resolutions on how to deal with conflict, how it's going to be mediated, so on and so forth. And while that's burdensome in some ways, it really sets a stage for what to expect if conflict arises, which is vitally important. And as everybody knows, family office or not, having a structure when there's a disagreement can actually be very settling, and it lets both parties know sort of what the expectation is, and then really just your family's needs and long-term goals and objectives, not just financially, but for the family as a whole, are kind of fall within the bucket of family office structure. The next bullet, if you will, is internal staffing, background checks. When you're moving to staff or you're recruiting the people who manage your wealth, it's vitally important to not just have their CV or their resume and sort of take that at face value, but to do an in-depth check. You're bringing somebody in a family office setting in a much more intimate way. So that is on our checklist, and hopefully it's on yours as well.
And when we talk about that, when we talk about recruiting and security through background checks and other really the right process and what's happening today, I see it. I actually received over the last few days, each week we receive both emails from families who are looking for help, and we receive updates from friends of ours and other contacts who say, hey, I'm looking for a new opportunity. And what often happens is when I'm on either side of that, I get a little bit nervous, because what's increasingly happened is a disparity between I'll take one example, the salaries and the compensation in the market for people who actually have to decide whether they'll stay in the family office space and continue to work with family offices, or go into industry, or pursue other desires, because the mix of private equity and the seemingly scarce number of people for positions. I can speak to, the accounting profession for one, where there's an estimated shortage of about 300,000. You can fact check me by a few thousand here or there, but roughly, several 100,000 professionals missing from the space. And so what that's done is the compensation levels for talent have skyrocketed. And of course, the pressure on individuals to return and for ROI and all of that, but also the perks that go along with it and that are available to people in other areas outside of family office, means that to keep those same people, to keep the level of individuals you want working for you in your family office, it really is important to take a fresh look at what the market comp rates are and what people are getting, and making sure that in order to keep that dollar amount that you've had in your head and that's held true for maybe a long time, that you're not put in a position where you're now under hiring and hiring with someone who just won't have the experience to meet the needs of the family office and work at a level that best represents you. So that's something that we'll be looking at. And also background checks have needed to become so much more sophisticated. Part of that is because so many people have now lived and worked internationally. Also the increased use of digital lives and places where we all exist, increased focus on social media presence and activities. And so it used to be, you simply had a background service and you ran a quick check. Many of you have met before, Michael Drabick, who is part of our resource council, and Michael and other experts over the course of the weeks and months ahead, will come and share, again, for informational use only, so that everybody's asking will know I said that, but tips you can look at in terms of making sure you're staying up to date and really exploring the people you're going to invite in to help run your family office. And so as we, continue thinking about that, that kind of it plays well into the conversation about oversight and governance. And so, first of all, do you continue to hire in-house, or do you increasingly outsource the support for your family office? We're going to talk about the mix of, pros and cons on both sides. But in terms of just the governance of the family office, the busier people get and the more everybody's traveling, this is an area that we see get, really, really lax. And then suddenly something goes wrong and hits the fan. And there are all the, woulda, coulda types of conversations. And so what we'll be looking at is fresh start, cleaning house, family office governance, internal controls. What should you have in place? What do you have in place right now? And some suggestions you can follow in the months ahead.
And also the participation of family members in policy making. There's obviously criteria that should be met or could be met and put in place for that. But with more input from the family as a whole on governance, you should end up with a more robust policy. And that would then lead into the number of members in the family with cybersecurity and protection of assets and information that are, for your family and kind of collectively should be protected. In today's markets, I think everybody can agree that cybersecurity is not an optional safeguard, and that protecting sensitive information is paramount, and is getting more and more difficult each day with social media, with all the different accounts, logins, sites that are used, not just professionally but personally in families. So I would definitely, if you haven't looked at your cybersecurity approach or policies recently, definitely is something that should be first and foremost or very high on the list for 2024.
And hi, Blue. Happy New Year. Welcome as we continue down the comments. So cybersecurity, this one for me is an area where I get super passionate about this. It's not even my core practice area, though we work with an amazing range of people who the more we have these conversations, the more into it I get, because when people come to me, I Rush, I can't speak for you, but certainly me, and ask, okay, so I'm looking at our cybersecurity, I'm looking at our IT structure, I'm looking to make sure that we are protected. And then you go through the process of talking about the extent to what I can share as information and what we have available through FOA, which is significant in terms of our reach through the community and people who play in this space. But then you can go through 2, 8, 10, 20 conversations about this until it's very clear what path a family should take, or at least the best set of recommendations that someone should decide on based on their family situation. And then there's a pullback in terms of wanting to make the investment or wanting to go through the process, because anything that's a hassle or that we can put off, we're all many of us are inclined to do that and pick a new day. But when you think about the amount of information you have at risk, and not only in your own family, but the social cost when you are the person who gets compromised, and as a result, the email addresses and history of conversations and all of the communications with your contacts, et cetera, get compromised. And not only can't you access your data, but now you've led to problems and issues that you have to disclose to your friends, your family, your contacts. The far-reaching implications of that and the potential damage is so significant that when I think about, again, from a branding and reputation, as well as just financial security and best practice, standpoint, I'm always for the cost benefit. Painful to think about while we're sitting here on this show, the millions of people across the world who are spending their day thinking about how to cause us that kind of pain is disturbing, but obviously so valid and growing every day. And AI obviously introduces a whole range of new benefits for people, but also dangers. So cybersecurity is something that we're going to keep harping on over the course of this year, and really encourage people to get buttoned up, because the huge gap between where we see most families exist today and where you actually would reach a point that most would consider protected, the gap is wide. So we want to make sure we really at least keep issuing the reminders, and hopefully help. If we make a difference in a few families, we'll feel like that was a really great contribution for the year. And so then investment trends and opportunities, it's so fun to, whenever we get the chance to connect with you, the families who we deal with, and always learn. Even if someone repeats an industry they're in, somebody's always improving on something or introducing something new. And so as those of you know, we don't deal make within FOA, but we really love the informational presentations and the informational sharing. Know many of you are doing raises, doing your deal making outside of those conversations, and that's great. But with regard to alternative investments, everything from art to fractional ownership platforms to outer space, whatever everybody's interested in, we're going to continue those, as well as the evolution of traditional investment practices and what we're seeing there. And so Rush will certainly be your lead go-to person in the months ahead on those topics. And Rush, I know you're ready.
Yeah, it's I really find myself drawn to the deals, and understanding my role in FOA. Obviously, introductions can be made, but it's been 2023 was very interesting with how groups pivoted based on interest rates, and took their models and sort of put a twist on it from a traditional raise and direct investment, to in essence creating a credit product, as banks were not lending as easily as they had been. And so it's always interesting to sort of hear how people are addressing the market through products and offerings, because it always seems that the next wave or the next solid investment is typically going to come from a small twist in what the offering or what the fund is looking at, and how they're looking at the markets. And that sort of goes into something that Jennifer and I've started to play with and use on a somewhat regular basis, in a very rudimentary way. But the advantages and disadvantages or dangers of AI, I don't know that we necessarily have an opinion at this point. It's very helpful in some of our day to day with questions, writing, things that we do, that I would say is not supremely impactful. But AI is definitely reshaping every industry, some more so than others. Wealth management, accounting, any service industry that is doesn't have a physical component to it. But understanding the potential of that, and the good and bad or potential bad that can come of that, I think is vital for this year. Most groups that we know of have at least entertained how AI could shape their businesses, but also impact their family offices.
So those are just a few of the areas. I know the half an hour has gone super fast today, and so want to thank you. But just to round that out, whether it's philanthropy, insurance, so many areas obviously that we'll touch on in the weeks ahead. And so also that's a preview again of where we'll really deep dive in the master classes and within the website. So Rush and I purposely have come off the road for the early part of this year to make sure we've doubled down on time spent on the content and with all of you virtually. So you'll see us pop on here more over the course of this month, and certainly continue the Monday shows, but we have some other cool things coming your way as well. So I want to thank everyone again. Any questions, any thoughts, any requests you may have, please feel free to reach out either to us through LinkedIn or the communications at familyofficeassociation.us email. And we always welcome your feedback and your contacts. So thank you very, very much again, and wishing you a wonderful rest of your week. See you next Monday.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good 2024.